and those are all really cool. So that's going to be some really fun updates. I'll get those out of the way so then we can take your questions. So I want to take your questions. Let's have a conversation about story, and let's talk about some of the things that you guys are working on, and maybe we can get inspired by that and inspire other people by doing this kind of thing. So big what's up to everybody. Let me first off mention, I hope you guys were able to catch the event that we did with Nick Sung. And so if you don't know what I'm talking about, go to our Facebook page and go to our YouTube page, our YouTube channel, and you can see the replay of that event. I think it's super valuable. What we did there was just a quick summary. We had that ongoing visual course I've been talking about. For those of you guys who have gone into that, it's free. There's 5 assignments that you can take and learn about visual storytelling and get through that. And Nick Sung, who's a Pixar veteran, who's working on indie films right now, is a super awesome story guy. And it's just so awesome to have that kind of feedback and just to listen to him talk about story, because a lot of the things just reminds me of just being in the story department and hearing the same kind of stuff being repeated over and over again. And in terms of what we need to do to get things right and get things better and the thinking process behind it, he took the assignments from a couple of the guys that submitted work in the visual story course, and he went over that, and he gave some tips. And this is really cool to see that. So I highly recommend you guys watch that, because he broke down things where you think it's pretty good already, but then he goes through it and he did a couple drawovers and just, things like lowering the camera and really focusing on what the intention is for the shot. And I think you'll see, you should just watch that, and I think you'll see that you get a lot out of it. It's the thinking process that's really important. So I always say don't ever cover up substance with technique. And it's really about what you're talking about. The emotional basis of your stories is really what matters. And it's great to have somebody like Nick who's supporting that idea. Sometimes I wonder out there, like I'm like an island among myself, and I could go off about stories and I just dig into it and I criticize it. But it's really nice to have another guy like Nick who just, as you can tell, coming up in story departments, it's the same thing. You got to break these things down. You got to analyze it logically, why things are there, what the motivations are for each character, how we're going to represent that visually, where we're going to place the camera. There's so many things that get involved with storytelling and visual storytelling that's part of the fun. It is complicated, but as soon as you learn this, it's that unlocking of the puzzle that you want to solve that it just becomes such an awesome challenge. It really is cool when you get into that kind of stuff. All right, so check out that Nick video. Enough about that. Go to the, you can see the replay on YouTube and also on our Facebook page. So check that out. All right, cool. What's up, fellas? Good to see you. I'm seeing some guys jump on in the Facebook feed, and there's a bunch of people on Instagram already. I'll just mention too, throw out your questions. Let's get through that. Let's talk shop. Let's have a conversation. Anything that's on your mind, bring it to me. Let's see if we can answer that collectively as a group, and I'll kind of lead the discussion here with some tips. A couple announcements with Storyboard. I want to mention something that we didn't get a chance to dive into in that last event that I'm talking to you about with Nick Sung. A couple of people mentioned about the mentorship. We actually had one question come through our Instagram page. They're asking, hey, you're always talking about this mentorship. What are you talking about? And we haven't done this for almost a year. And so I think I want to talk a little bit about that, take a couple minutes here to talk about. And a couple of you guys know and have been in the mentorship. I love seeing you guys on here because you are active pro story artists now working in there. And it was just great having you in that event. So quick summary of what we did. We had a very dedicated group of people come to a year-long course that was led by myself through Storyboard Art. And we came through 12 lessons, 12 modules of storytelling that hit on principles that are designed to improve your portfolio. So at the end of this mentorship, after a year of collaborating back and forth and throwing out assignments, you have enough material to recreate or add or boost your portfolio, and then enough information on the business side of things so you can hit it with confidence and go out there and get jobs. And I know of a couple people in the mentorship who have written me back personally, which is a joy, such a pleasure to hear back from people that they're getting traction and they're getting jobs and they're getting some hits from recruiters, and a couple of people have landed jobs. So I'm following up with these guys because I like to get the juicy details on that. It's just awesome. It's just exciting for me because I remember when I got my first gig in the business, it was like a dream come true. It really was. It was. I always wanted to work in animation, and the fact that somebody would consider me and pay me to be an artist and work on visual storytelling and films and animation, I was thrilled. I was really thrilled. So I love giving back and helping people get on board, get the career started, and that kind of thing. So anyway, back to the mentorship. What is that? It is a year-long course, and for those of you for those of you interested in this kind of thing, we are locking down the schedule. Now, of course, COVID-19 has thrown us through a loop. We had planned on doing this sooner, but most likely it'll hit in September. I don't have the confirmed dates. So the best thing you can do right now, if you're interested in boosting your portfolio and getting personal feedback from myself and possibly a couple of other guest speakers and guest artists. So that's the other secret that we're putting up there. I don't have anybody confirmed yet. I don't want to give away anything else until we have it locked in. But there's a couple of guys, and I'll just say like the level of Nick Sung. In fact, Nick was part of the mentorship. He gave a couple like drawing lessons, and we have some recorded lessons from him that were there. So that's always fabulous to see. We also had some archives from guys like Tim Burgard and other people who have been around storyboard art. At any rate, we're going to lock in those dates so you guys know. The best thing you can do right now if you're interested in that is go to Storyboard Art, click on the classes and the courses page up top of the menu, and there you're going to see an entry for the waiting list on the mentorship. So at least there's a little information there. I'm sorry until we have more confirmed. I just don't want to give it away because the dates might change and I don't want people's expectations to come through. So the other thing to keep in mind is a year-long course, and I want guys who are serious, okay? I want people who really want to succeed, who feel like, yeah, they're ready. They want to bring it. They want to improve their portfolio, and then they want to work as visual storytellers, and they want to work as artists. Okay, so those are the type of people we want in that group, so that we can all get inspired and all learn together. To my extreme satisfaction, the group that we had was so awesome and inspiring. In fact, we keep in touch through a private Facebook page, and there's a lot of networking going on, and I hope that continues for as long as possible. And that's kind of one of the benefits of doing this kind of thing. So it's all online, especially for you guys who are remote or outside of the US. That's also an opportunity that opens up. And of course, now that we realize that we can do things remotely with this whole COVID lockdown, might as well take advantage of it, right? Okay, so, and if you want more information, you could write us directly, email us at Storyboard Art. Email is story@storyboardart.org. And then we'll help you out that way. So what's on your mind? What we got going here? Let me dig into the questions so far, and we'll see what we have. All right, so this one is from Kruger's. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Do you have a good resource for finding written stories or scripts for practice? Yes, we do. I think you guys out there, correct me if I'm wrong. If you go to Storyboard Art, and I think you're going to have to register. It's free, right? So you just open a free register account, and you get access to the Pro Artist Guide. In there, we have links to script resources and written resources. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Hopefully that's still there, because sometimes I get lost on all the links and stuff. My tech guys can help me out on this. At any rate, there are some awesome resources that people have published from just the web. It's not stuff from us. We have a couple sample scripts and things like that. I think you can dig around in that Pro Artist Guide as well. But there are other places that just external sites that we relink to, where you can download scripts from TV shows, from movies, and these are all things that are like publicly available, right? And then what you can do with that, for like you're saying, for practice, is you can just take that script from anything, either something that you like I don't know, whatever film. Let's assume that you get the script from the Marvel films or something like that. You can grab a scene and do it in your own way, or something that you haven't seen, which is actually really good, or maybe something that's older, like a TV show from the 80s or 90s, and you can grab that and then do your version. The idea there, one thing I would recommend is don't board out the whole thing, because if you do, even an episodic thing would be like 21 minutes or something like that. That's an incredibly difficult and long thing to do. I've done that before. I boarded out a whole film, a whole feature, and it took me 3 months. It was incredibly difficult. So anyway, don't do that. Just take a scene, board that out, and you have a sample for your portfolio. That's something you can do for practice. The other good thing is you're gonna see the script format. If you guys have not been familiar with that, you do want to be familiar with working from a script. It's really easy to read. It's something I think you don't have to read any. You don't have to have a guide to understand what a script is. You just look at it, read it. It's pretty self-explanatory. If you don't understand that, there's easy ways you can just do a web search and look at definitions, because they might have shorthands for like camera notes or fade-ins and fade-outs and transitions and stuff like that. But for the most part, it's pretty self-explanatory. And if you still get hung up, well, that's what we're here for. Go to our Facebook group and put in a question, and hopefully we can answer answer your question and point you in the right direction. So yeah, go to the Pro Artist Guide on Storyboard Art. Or just do a web search, see what you find. There's a lot of stuff. You'd be surprised what's out there. Okay, cool. So let me go to this next question. Delio Hot Guy. Okay, is there specific brushes needed for doing storyboards, or can you use pencil brushes? That's a good question. I am actually not I'm not the best expert on creating brushes or using brushes and stuff. The thing that I use, which might seem funny to most of you guys, I just use the default brushes that come with Photoshop and the default brushes that come with any of the programs. I look for a brush that has pressure sensitivity, so the darker that I press, the wider the line will get, and then it has like a feathering aspect to it. So I can do that with a Wacom tablet and my Cintiq, where that the lighter I push, then it has like a lighter stroke. So that's what I do. But it's basically like an ink, just a standard ink brush is what I have. So, and the answer to your question really is yes, there are many specific brushes out there. I wouldn't go crazy and download or buy like pencil brushes or anything like that. You can use whatever you want. Some guys prefer like really thick lines that look like Sharpie lines, like from a Sharpie pen. Do I have anything like that to show? Yeah, let's see. Like this is a Sharpie, right? Yeah, Sharpie. Okay. So this has like a nice thick line that you can do storyboards with. This one is just an orange color, but most people prefer black on a white piece of paper. This is good for being bold and putting it down. So the equivalent is available on Photoshop or Procreate or TV Paint or Toon Boom, any one of these. There are other ones that have like a more pencil feel to it, and it has like a grainy look, and that's just a brush that you can either, there's settings for that and you can adjust the settings, or you can just do a web search and see if there's a lot, go on forums and stuff. You can go to post it on our Facebook page, like I'm saying, and ask anybody if they have a brush that they're willing to share. And you could just download that and put that into your Photoshop, and you already have like a brush set ready to go. I've got a couple that another story guy that was part of Storyboard Art gave to me, which is awesome. It's just a set of like kind of like pencil, graphite pencil equivalent brushes, and those have been really, really cool to use. But it really doesn't matter. Don't go crazy on technique. This is where I say don't get overwhelmed by the technique and you want to get like, recreate watercolor or recreate pencil. Yeah, that's cool. You can do that. Procreate has really good tools for doing that stuff lately. But worry about the content. Worry about the composition. Worry about what's inside your boundaries, right? What's inside your bounding box and your frame. That's really what you want. So if you do it with, if you do it with toothpicks or Sharpies or a thick brush versus a thin brush, it doesn't really matter. But just as long as the content is good. One thing I would recommend do is be bold. Go with something that's going to give you nice, solid blacks, and that you're not going to noodle with. You're not going to sit there and render every little like pointillism detail. You're not Seurat here. You're more like bold Picasso lines, okay? The reason I say that is because guys have the tendency to noodle and render in shadows when you forget about like just the actual composition of the shot that you should be worrying about, okay? So just to summarize, there is no like storyboard brush that you should be using. Pick whatever you like, okay? All right, let me go to Sai Sarath. You got a question here. So you have a question about getting an entry-level job in the industry. I'm a graduate, but with a little bit of experience in commercial and films, but no experience in animation. But for an entry-level job, the requirements are to have a minimum of 3 years experience. Let me expand this a little bit. How do you think we should approach them even though we have no experience in animation? This is a great question, and this is the reason why I did mention the mentorship course at the beginning. If you don't have a portfolio yet, what you want to be doing is creating exercises and doing storyboard samples that show off what you can do on a professional level. So even if you don't have those 3 years experience, you want to show samples that show you can do what you would be doing eventually in that job. So it's got to look professional. So what you want to do, so you should know what is required of you for that job. If you have no idea, and that's part of the barrier, is that you don't have the experience to understand what is going to be required of you in the job, then you're at a disadvantage. That's where you got to come to us, and we're going to show you exercises of what to do so you have something to show in your portfolio. It's actually simpler than you think. Like the previous question talking about script exercises, you just grab a script, right? And you flesh it out in boards, and you want to make it as clear as possible and show off your storytelling. So that's basically what you want to do. If you have no experience, you want to put various examples that show your awesome drawing, your awesome storytelling, that your own personal take on staging, composition, your camera work, all of the things that are unique to you. You put that together in a portfolio, and that's when you apply. What happens there, and it doesn't matter if you don't have any experience, if your portfolio is good enough, they're going to look at it. And I've done this. I've been on the other side of this. I've been on both sides, where I've been soliciting to get a job, and I've also been on the side of hiring people who are soliciting to get a job, right? So when I see a portfolio, I don't care about their resume. I look at the work, okay? I want to see if they can do the work. And I flip through this, I go, okay, this guy's got good drawing. This guy's got good perspective. This guy knows what his shots are, composition. And then I look and I say, oh man, this guy is straight out of school. He has no experience. What are we going to do with this guy? But he's got skills, right? And I'm just arbitrarily making up some kind of example here, right? If that's what I see, I'll put that guy on the short list to give him a call and say, hey, come on over. We want to give you an interview and find out if he's up for the challenge, right? Some studios will give you a test, all that kind of stuff. But really, the recruiters out there on the websites, they put that like standard terminology of like 3 to 5 years experience. And yes, it's valid. Yes, they want people who have that experience, and there's plenty of guys out there. But if you're just trying to break into this, and like you're saying, you're a recent graduate, so hopefully you've had a taste of what you need to get into the industry. Hopefully there's some people who have guided you to show you professional examples of what you would need to get into the industry. If you have no clue, like you're saying, if you're just raw, maybe you went to a school that's just traditional skills and there's no like technique when it comes to visual storytelling and stuff. That's what we're here for. That's what that mentorship is all about, because we're going to show you, and we're going to personally guide you to get to your portfolio to where it needs to be. At least point you in the right direction so you know what to be doing. Okay. Great question, by the way. All right, Omar. Okay, let's answer yours here. I'm glad you guys are throwing these questions our way. So hopefully, if you guys have any answers to this as well, by the way, please put that into the chat and help me out to field these things. Okay, Omar. How do you deal with a script that does more telling than describing when it comes to storyboarding it? So how do you deal with the script that does more telling than describing when it comes to storyboarding it? Now that question, in fact, can be interpreted in a couple of ways. When you say more telling, I think what you're probably referring to is that it's giving you camera notes. It might give you just description of things that are not relevant to the scene. I've seen a couple of script examples like that. And what I do there is I try and break down the intention of the scene. This is something that we all have to do as storytellers. You have to know what that scene is about, okay? So let's talk about a script. A script is one whole story. Within that, you have sequences, you have acts and that kind of thing. But let's take that. One of the basic building blocks of a script and a story is your scene, right? Each scene is a moment of action between characters that will hopefully move the story forward, and it turns, right? There's an event that happens that will push the story forward. So then you want to understand what the intention is of that scene, even if what is written does not necessarily reflect that. You, as a story artist, you do have to be faithful to what's written in the script, unless you are given the freedom by your director to change that, okay? So, and writer, director, producer, whoever it is that you're working with. And so you should be faithful to the dialogue, but what you do have control over is the visuals. And what you can do is, using your camera work and your staging, arrange the characters within that stage, within that set, within that location, so that it represents more the point to that scene, okay? That's a lot of things that I do when I board out stuff. I will look for the intention of the scene, and this is one way you can make suggestions. Like, you could do almost two versions. I've done this sometimes before. It takes more work, right? But you do two versions. You do the literal version of what's written, and you do an alternate version of what you suggest the solution to be. And most of the time, your suggestion, if you're on point, the directors and producers and stuff will like your suggestion and incorporate that into the script, because you're solving visual problems that they might like. Okay, so that's one way to do it. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, cool. Let me go back to a couple people here asking questions. Hold on, give me a sec. Let me scroll through this. Hey, Bruno. All right, my friend. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for your comment there. Good to see you, by the way. I hope things are well. All right, so that's another guy from our mentorship, by the way. I'm just reading through some of these questions. Any suggested websites to grab some scripts? Yeah, if any of you guys have the link handy, please pass that around. I'll see if I can dig that up after this chat, so that way you guys can have, you know, a link to some of these scripts. Cool. There's another question from Kruger. So you heard a Disney artist talk about tests. What's the best way to get your hands on the tests? Is it just best to apply and hope for a test? You can do a test. If you hear of somebody do a test, that's great. You can just copy that. Don't copy the person's result. What you want to do is understand what test they're giving you and do a version of yourself. Most of the time, and this will change like almost with every job application. And most of the time, if they're giving you a test, they just want to see what your storytelling style will be. I've heard of many tests where it's just open-ended, like two characters arrive at a dentist's office, and that's it. And then you're supposed to make up a comedic scene or a gag scene based on that. Other tests are much more specific, where they give you a page of the script, and they want you to board that out. So that's something, again, you could possibly get a hold of that if people share that around. And that's something, remember, that's something that you can also put in your portfolio, even if like you get a test from Disney, maybe that you never get a callback, which, you know, sometimes happens, but you still own that material that you created for that test. You can put that in your portfolio if you like it, and then you could show that to other people, right? So hopefully that is something you can do. Cool. So let me go to a couple more questions here. My Tran asks, which is the best media for a storyboard portfolio to you? A video reel or PDF? Do you prefer dub your own voice or write the dialogue down? Those are great questions. Let me see if I can field this. It does vary from person to person and from company to company. Depends on what you're applying for. I usually always have both. I have nowadays, so it used to be where you didn't have animatics or video storyboards to show in a story reel. That trend is increasing, and I think it's here to stay. So most people have samples of moving images of a story reel in an animatic form, which is basically storyboards cut together with temp sound and temp music, and it shows the timing of the scene. Those are something that's easily done in a program like Toon Boom, and then you would do probably further editing in a program like Adobe Premiere. So in asking whether you prefer a PDF or video reel, I actually like to do both. The PDF one is actually really, really important because it shows off your drawing skills and your story sequences. Most studios still want to see a PDF or compiled 2D flat version of your storyboards without motion or timing. The reason for that, it's easier to look at an individual storyboard panel and assess if that person has really solid drawing skills, if their staging is clear, if they can do really cool composition, if they have a nice shorthand when it comes to drawing. So those are the things that you can see in a PDF. And so I look at the video reel as a supportive material, and all of this stuff can be online. So a PDF version is it's like an Acrobat document of images that can actually be printed out, and you should print that out if you go to an interview. Have a physical copy of this you can hand to the person, and they can flip through this stuff. And then you could also have a video reel that's on YouTube or Vimeo or any one of these video services that just has a short clip of your animatics. So you can compile these things together, but my recommendation here is you don't make that reel longer than 2 minutes. 3 minutes is really painful to go through when, as a recruiter looking at this stuff. Start it with the best possible scene that you have, add some sound and music to it if the scene doesn't have it already, and make it interesting, and make sure you have your contact info on either as a subtitle on the page. So the second part of your question is, do you prefer to dub your voice or write in the dialogue? I actually prefer to dub in my voice and do some temp work. And just because so you don't have to read anything, you're hearing it and looking at the video, and it's the audio. It's just a scratch track version of what the finished product should be. I prefer that as to reading subtitles. Now, if you can't do that, or if you're not good at, voice acting or whatever, it doesn't have to be that great. Trust me, I'm not a good voice actor. So then you can just write in subtitles. That's fine. Don't get too worried about that. Really, what's important is the visuals and the storyboards that you actually produce there. Okay, so I recommend having both. Really, I think it is more important, in my opinion, to have the PDF book and show solid examples of storyboards, right? Cool. Hey, thanks for your comment on that, Sai Sarath. You're saying you recently joined the bootcamp program, which is another course that we have. It's part of the extension of kind of the visual story course that we're telling people about. And you're working on some exercises. So that's great. Make sure you hit us up, and for any comments or questions, you can post that to our Facebook group or email us directly. We love collaborating with people and seeing what you can produce. So look forward to seeing those things. So again, if you have any questions about what I'm talking about here, go to our Storyboard Art on the courses page and check out some of those updates that we have for you. Cool. All right, let me get to some of these questions. This is great. This is a great conversation we're having here. Let's keep it going for another couple minutes. I'm making sure I didn't skip any. Give me a second here. So main film 2019. I've been working on a short film using Toon Boom, but working on thumbnails. Awesome, man. I love it. That sounds great. Keep that up. Toon Boom is also a great program. It's a nice. If you guys haven't checked it out, a lot of studios are using Toon Boom for doing their storyboards. You can download a student version, and they have student pricing for Toon Boom, which is really affordable. I think it's like under $10 a month for doing the student. Don't quote me on that. You go to the web page. Hopefully they haven't raised their prices. And but for like the educational license of Toon Boom, I think that's pretty generous that they can offer that for less than $10. I think it was, last time I checked, it was like $6 a month. Don't quote me on that. Go check it out yourself. And then, we have been talking to them as far as Storyboard Art as the organization. And I think if you're on our platform and you're taking our courses, you qualify as a student and get the educational license. Hit us up personally if you need more information on that. Okay, so awesome about working on your films and stuff. Great. So yeah, and then Kruger's gave us an update on some of the tests. So yeah, Old Lady Crossing the Street test for your storyboards. That's always good. That's one thing to do if you guys have nothing to inspire you as far as storyboard samples. What you can do is just do a couple of quick story exercises. Like one of the exercises, which I think is pretty basic and simple, but is really kind of difficult if you think about it, to make it unique and interesting, is one that we give in our visual story course, which is, and we highlighted this with our Nick Sung event, which is Captain America and Superman sit down and have a cup of coffee. And that could be anything. It's so open-ended like that. You can really do all kinds of things with that story scenario, right? You can have a fight going on. You can have an argument between Captain America and Superman. You could, I remember seeing one example where they had these guys on the side of a building and Superman was like flying. Think about the kind of superpowers that these two characters have. Or you could flip it around. Like maybe they're on, I've seen some examples here too. With that, you can take it in a different direction and make it comedic, where these guys are in an ordinary situation. They're superheroes, but they have to do like mundane stuff. Maybe they're at the car wash, like polishing their car or something, and things go wrong because they don't know how to handle like the everyday world, right? There's all kinds of things you can do with a simple scenario like that. One of the examples that I used to give out in some of our courses was two characters arrive at a restaurant and have a conversation. It was just open-ended like that, and it was I wanted people to focus on their staging, so that you have two characters sitting at a table. What do? You can't just have two talking heads and cut back and forth. I mean, that's so boring. You have to create something interesting. So does the waiter come in and give them food? Does one get up and go to the bathroom? Do they have an argument? So are they eating, in an aggressive way? Are they is one character crying? Like, there's so many things that you can think of that will avoid having this just like talking head shots of like cutting from medium shot to medium shot. That's the idea, is showing off your skills and your filmmaking and your unique vision when it comes to doing a storyboarded scene, right? Yeah, a lot of guys, awesome. These are great comments from everybody. A lot of guys are using Toon Boom. A lot of guys are using TV Paint. I actually like TV Paint a lot. That's a little more expensive because it's got more features and it's like animation heavy, but that's also a really cool pro version of the software. For you guys, if you didn't know this, Klaus, the recent Netflix film that was done by Spa Studios in Spain, they used Toon Boom to do their animation, and I think they used Harmony, and I think they used Storyboard Pro. They probably used everything under the sun, but I think the main export for their animation was using Toon Boom. So that's a really interesting. Yeah, these are pro software that can do everything you're going to need, right, when it comes to doing visual storytelling, storyboards, or whatever. Let me have a sip of water. Cheers, my friends. The other thing to note about these lessons, yeah, Tim, you're working through some Toon Boom stuff. It's not that difficult to pick up these softwares. If this is what my recommendation is. If you know Photoshop, you pretty much can apply those same 2D skills to any software package. Toon Boom is very similar. You can go through the tutorials that they have up there on YouTube and probably on their homepage for free, and it's really easy to get through that stuff in less than a day. I think you'd probably be working and creating storyboards and learning how to do the interface. Now, if you want to get more complicated, which we certainly did, because we used Toon Boom at Lucasfilm when we were doing Rebels and the Resistance project. You can put 3D in there. You could do really sophisticated camera effects, and we pushed that software to the limit, and we found the limit. So, but it's a really solid software package, and it's a good one, and for the price, I think it's really reasonable. So, yeah, and TV Paint's out there. If you're looking for free software, if you're broke off and have no money, then go to things like Storyboarder. Download that. That one's for free. Download Sketchbook from Autodesk. That's also free. It has a timeline feature that you can do boards on. And those are simple programs that are really good. And like the pen technique and the tools out there are so readily available, and those things are actually really, really good. Okay. So just a couple of tips if you guys are worried about software and stuff. Okay, cool. These are some great questions. Let me get to these, and I think we're gonna call it for today. But main film 2019, you got another question here. Would studios like to see your own work like film process? So would studios like to see your own work like film process? Let me see if I digest that a little bit. Are you talking about like how you work in your thinking process? The answer to that is yes. So you probably want to show, what you want to show is your finished storyboards. I also like to include a couple of thumbnail pages to show my thinking process and show how I break down a scene. Now, my thumbnails are cleaned up. There are many ways to do rough passes, and some of those can be really, really rough. So that's where you want to make sure it's presentable and it's going to show off the way that you break down a scene and you think about things. What I don't think is a good idea to include are rough character designs and like rough random sketches in your sketchbook on like the side of the script, because that doesn't show your It doesn't show your storyboarding technique. It doesn't show your idea making process. That's why thumbnails that are sequential and you show like your rough pass, that's a little bit better to show in your portfolio, right? Hopefully that helps. All right, let me get to you, Rivers Anywhere. You're asking a question here. When you watch a nice movie to learn about cinematography or shot building, what do you do with the movie? Is there any tip you can share? So yeah, like one thing that I do with films is especially films that I like, I'll usually watch them one time all the way through and just kind of absorb the essence of the film, the emotional beat and all that stuff, and just be like a fan and a spectator. But I'll pay attention to a lot of the story details. I've done this recently with a couple films on Netflix, which I love that. It's a lot of fun. Then I'll go back and watch that film again, and I'll pause it and I'll freeze frame it, and I'll do little sketches of the compositions that I like. And what that does, it's not just, okay, it's also drawing practice. What that does, it builds your visual memory of the shot. And you really, trust me, if you do this on any number of films, you're probably going to be surprised about the way they're composing and how tight or how close they are to their characters. And you can really learn a lot about cinematography by doing this. And so that builds up your visual memory, and you remember that stuff. And also pay attention to things like the camera height. How high is the camera in relation to the characters in a particular shot? Okay, is the camera low to the ground? Is it higher than the characters? And how does that make you feel as an audience member? Those are things you want to pay attention to. Also, lighting is really cool. If you have a nice shot with lighting, dramatic lighting or flat lighting, whatever it is, those are some things that you can pick up by watching films and learning by doing sketches from movies. So that's really important. Okay. So that's one tip that I do, and I just keep it really fun and simple. And I might only do it for I don't have to watch the whole movie for 2 hours and start pausing every scene. I might only do that for half an hour, or if I'm really into it, get into it for like an hour, because after a while, just I zone out and I get bored. Or sometimes actually, if the movie's really good, I'll pause it on one thing, I'll do a sketch, I'll press play, and then all of a sudden I get absorbed again in the film, and I just end up watching the movie again. So that sometimes happens. But yeah, a couple of tips there is, don't get carried away with like your digital setup and dragging your computer all the way to your screen. Or, some things that you can do is if you have a second monitor, is put up like Netflix or YouTube and watch the film there. Or if you have like a digital version of the film, bring it up on a window. And then in another program, you start drawing on your Cintiq and do that. I've done that a couple times. My own personal preference, though, is to use a sketchbook and actually go back to traditional methods, because it's just a way to practice. And to me, that's building your visual memory. It's not something I'm necessarily going to put a portfolio or show people. And it's a great learning process. Trust me on this. The other thing that I've done in the past, especially when I was trying to learn about like facial shapes and mouth shapes and just animation poses, I would freeze frame animated films, especially good ones that have really solid drawing, and copy those poses. You'd be, again, depending on what frame you pause on, the exaggeration of the squash and stretch and of the facial expressions, to me, is really amazing. Some of these animators are awesome. One film that I really think I learned a lot from, especially on the mouth shapes, was Lilo and Stitch. If you remember that film, because it had this nice rounded overall production design, and the characters had these big rounded shapes, and at certain points their mouths would grow huge and they would have a really cool kind of oval shape with teeth and tongue in there and stuff. And I thought that was really fun. It's just a nice way to build up your shorthand by doing that. So don't forget about animated films when you're doing your studies. Cool, guys. I hope these are some good tips for you, and we'll take, if we didn't get to your questions this time, please hit us up. We're gonna always post these on our YouTube page after the fact. You can see these on Facebook as well. So yeah, good luck on your projects, and we'll catch you next time on these live streams. It'll probably be next week. Okay, see ya. Take care. Bye-bye.